Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about the habit of sleep. I have a very special guest, Zeke Medina, who's a sleep consultant. He provides comprehensive sleep plans and support to help implement the plan for sleep deprived. He helps babies, mothers, and parents get sleep. So I want to welcome you on the podcast today, Zeke.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jesse. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So what exactly is a sleep consultant?
You know, I kind of think of it as more as a coach. We basically work with individuals that, have suffered from insomnia, whether they're having trouble getting to bed within 30 minutes to an hour, or if they find themselves waking up in the middle of the night for no reason and they can't go to bed for 30 to 60 minutes. Obviously, this type of regimen of sleep is something that affects them during the day, and they don't get to have the normal day as someone that is well slept, as we could say. So what we have to do is we go through their whole history. We have a detailed questionnaire, a diet and food log, an exercise log, just kind of getting the nitty-gritty of what exactly could be causing this. And obviously, as I go through the questionnaire, I'm looking for red flags and things that we can start working on. But ultimately, what it barrels down to is improving their sleep and then consistently, slowly trying to make habit changes that not only make their health better, but also make their sleep more quality as it relates to getting that deep sleep as well as good REM sleep.
Sure.
Because there's so much research now. I mean, if you've ever read the book Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker, I would say give it a good look, because he goes over so much of the benefits of sleep and also some of the risk factors when you don't sleep. So, I mean, that's definitely something that I can point out today if you want to go over that as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. So let me ask you this. Why does someone need a sleep coach? Like, what are some of the benefits that people will see and discover by working with a coach?
Simplicity. I mean, plain and simple. When I was going through this, I didn't even know of the program that you can get certified to come up with this simple form of just getting them straight to the point, getting results fast. It took me just researching everything, blogs, books, articles, things that, you really have to search in depth for. It took me 4 to 6 weeks to fix my sleep. I'm sorry, 4 to 6 months. I'm sorry. It was a long time. I was on medication, Ambien. That was the only way I could think. I mean, that's just kind of what happened. I mean, I just had bad sleep ever since I was in the Army, and they had me working night shift. So it was just one of those things where I knew I needed to get off of Ambien with all the research. And I have a lot of clients that are the same way. And so rather than them, go 4 or 6 months trying to do it themselves, I want to simplify that for them, give them a detailed written plan, and also a plan where we can go one-on-one with, so they don't feel lost if I just tell them, all right, we're going to talk in a week. Well, after 3 or 4 days, what happens if you have those questions? It's best to get them answered so you have that confidence moving forward so you can get those results faster.
Right. So what are some of the results that you've seen working with people?
Yeah, so I've worked with, so recently I have a client that was, she was pregnant. So that left us kind of limited to a lot of things. But she was worried about, she was in her first trimester. She had issues waking up at night. I mean, just 2 to 3 hours. She would wake up super early. And for the beginning, she was an early riser to begin with. So what we normally see with early risers is they go to bed early, they wake up early. That's just how their clock is. So we wanted to keep that rhythm. She was okay with it. Her husband was okay with it. And so what we've started to do is work on different types of habit changes of slowly introducing exercise regimens, better diet, because she would go through hours without eating. And I had to tell her diet is pretty important, consistent caloric content throughout the day. You don't want those peaks and dips that are going to really make you suffer for some food. And guess what you reach for? Candy. You reach for those sweet bagels, you know? And so we had to kind of get through that. And by her just fixing like certain things with just her schedule of sleep, it allowed her to get a little bit more sleep than what she was normally used to, which allowed her to build those habits a little bit easier, you know, since, you know, if you're tired, I don't find anybody making a ton of changes easily, right? So she was able to do a lot with getting a little bit more sleep in the beginning and then building on that. So by the 4th week, I mean, I had her sleeping 8 to 9. Well, I would say about 7.5 to 8 hours.
Now, when you are tracking people's sleep, are you tracking their overall, like, just their overall sleep? Or are you tracking like REM, you know, deep, awake, and light sleep? Are you tracking all those, or are you just tracking kind of the total hours?
Yeah, that's interesting because, you know, we all have these Fitbits nowadays, right? And if you put them on the heart rate monitor, they'll give you how much deep sleep, REM sleep, and whether or not these are accurate. I mean, they have a pretty good algorithm that can estimate it.
Right.
But in order to really get into the nitty gritty, you really have to have an EEG set up. You need eye monitors, you need heart rate monitors, blood pressure monitors to really know if whether or not you're getting those types of sleep.
Right.
So me, I'm looking more of quality because I can easily monitor that and feel exhausted when it tells me I've had 7 hours and 45 minutes of sleep.
Right.
So it's really more of how long did it take you to go to bed? Did you do the routine that we talked about right before bed? How did it feel? And if they were able to sleep fairly easily, and then it's always, did you sleep through the night? Because ultimately, we want uninterrupted total sleep.
Okay.
You know, we don't want to be waking up in the middle of the night. It's going to happen. I mean, that's huge.
So what does that mean when we wake up in the middle of the night? What is that?
You know,
what is
honestly, it means a lot. It can be anywhere from diet, first of all. So one of the main things, and I read a lot of posts about this, is everybody loves to have dessert during dinner time, right? It's always something to just top it off. But
Sure.
what does it do? What does it do to your blood sugar? And, you know, if you have a really good dessert, you're going to get those sugars really climbing. And when they climb, what's going to be is secreted by the body's pancreas, your insulin.
Yeah.
So depending on that peak, that pancreas is going to secrete as much insulin as it needs to bring it down, because we don't want high blood sugars, right? As that starts to come down, you're going to notice that it's going to bring it down even faster. So that hypoglycemic state typically hits around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And that's where I typically have patients or clients wake up and they don't know why they're awake. They just know my body just woke me up for some reason.
Okay.
Hey, Jesse, I'm going to let my dog out. I don't know why he got in here. Get out. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
So, yeah, I mean,
so basically, is there a window you recommend people to, because really the American tradition is you eat dinner and then you have dessert. I mean, even for my 3 kids, what are they always asking for? You know, a half hour after dinner is like, hey, I want dessert. Or 30 minutes before bed, they're like, I want dessert. And a lot of times you give in and give it to them, but the effect of that is they actually end up waking up at, 12, 1 o'clock. But what do you recommend for people to not do, like, for a certain amount of time before bed as far as eating?
Yeah. So when it comes to adults that have had issues, this is something that I normally find in a food log when I kind of have them write down just kind of what they eat at what times. And a lot of times it's, those survival foods, which are high in carbohydrates or high in sugar. And that's the first win that we can make. Hey, instead of doing this, let's try to make sure that your lunch and your dinner aren't as far apart, because sometimes people wait 6 to 8 hours. So not only are they starving, but they're also looking for that survival food, anything that's sweet. So I try to look at that as, number one, let's fix this first and give yourself about a couple of days. Now, if someone is having also a light meal at dinner time, that too is going to cause that blood sugar to kind of slowly drift. Or they have a really early dinner and they wait about 3 to 4 hours before they go to bed. You're also going to see a little dip in the blood sugars too. So in that case, I typically will recommend maybe an hour before they go to bed to get about a 200 calorie like snack. So this snack can consist of protein, complex carbohydrates, so whole grains, maybe some peanut butter, and just try to take that an hour before to kind of carry you through the night, so it avoids that. So when you look at middle of the night wake up, that's one case. The other cases here can be bedroom environment. You know, as women as they get older, they're going to be going through menopause and other things too. And they might feel temperature changes a little bit more sensitive to their husbands. So what's cool for you may be very warm for them. And those will typically wake them up. When the body is not cooled down enough to sleep, I typically have a lot of women waking up and not knowing why.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of issues there as well. And then I've had a teenager that always kept it really warm, and she was just consistently waking up, not knowing why, but just in a sweat. And I had to explain to her, obviously that's our issue right there. Hers actually was a little bit more complex. She had a comforter directly on her skin, which was causing her to be overheated at night and waking up in a sweat. She thought it was her thyroid. And then we actually had her put a thin sheet between her and the comforter, and that solved it. So it was a pretty easy fix. But
yeah, have you heard of the I think it's called chili pads or things like that, where they kind of keep a steady temperature? Have you recommended stuff like that, or have you ever tested any of that, or do you I'm kind of a nut into biohacking, and that's big in
right.
So
I mean, if you live in America, you got an AC.
Yeah.
You know, and I just say the optimal temperature for anybody, it's going to be around 60 to 67 degrees. Now,
Okay.
is that for everybody? No, I mean, I'm comfortable at 70, so I just -1 degree from my comfort level, and
Okay.
that's good sleeping. And if it gets too warm, I just take the comforter off and I just have my sheet.
Okay.
So, but my wife, she loves it cold and she wants the comforter on, and that's the way she feels, comfy and cozy. So it's really just, it's going to be based on the individual. But everybody, I mean, I would say everybody needs to have their room like a cave. I mean, it just needs to be a really dark cave.
So like no lights. I mean, one of the other big things, I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit, that we hear about is Wi-Fi, cell phone.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you recommend people do with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there was actually a science project by some elementary school kids, or maybe middle school. Did you hear about that one?
No.
So they basically took a plant, a certain type of plant, and they put it near a Wi-Fi signal. And they took another one, they put it away from the Wi-Fi signal. And over weeks, they noticed that the one near the Wi-Fi signal didn't grow as well. It actually looked dead. And that sparked a lot of conversation in the science community, to where they want to actually now start to do more investigation on that. So most sleep plans that I have, I typically want to take away the phones at least 30 minutes before bedtime.
Okay.
And that goes to shutting them off if they can, or just putting it across the room. I really like these Fitbits because I can set an alarm on my Fitbit, turn off my phone, and the alarm's saved. So it just vibrates and it doesn't wake up my wife, and I can get up and just, do what I need to do.
Is your Fitbit Bluetooth activated, or is that separate?
Yeah, so it's Bluetooth when I connect, and then after that, it's just all in here.
Okay.
So it's just a Fitbit. I bought it on eBay for like $40. So
okay. Yeah, I have a Whoop band, so I'm just wondering, So yeah, like a couple things I've read about is obviously like blue screens, which are TVs, computers, phones. They can affect our circadian rhythm. When we, they can let us know that, hey, it may be like 10 o'clock at night, but by looking at our phones, it could actually throw that off into us thinking it might be, 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Right.
And that can really affect our sleep. And then also Wi-Fi, you know, a lot of times we put our phones right by our head. And if we leave the Wi-Fi on, then, you know, we kind of have that signal. So, you know, I've heard, you know, for myself, I put it on usually airplane mode and shut off the Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I have my Whoop band on at night, and that kind of tracks my sleep. But those are really simple fixes that I think people can work towards. But what I really want to know, man, is what are the long-term side effects of not getting, you know, that 7 to 8 hours of sleep? And then not only that, you get that consecutively to where you maybe only be getting 5, 6 hours, you know, for months or for years. What are the side effects of that?
So a lot. So for one, without enough sleep, so they've looked at less than 7 hours of sleep and what it does to the body. They've saw research where the sympathetic nervous system is overstimulated at that point. And what does that mean? So the sympathetic nervous system controls the fight or flight, you know, that we all hear about. So you're either going to fight or just run. And when you look at what happens when the fight or flight is activated, number one, you're looking at your heart rate increasing, your blood vessels constrict, so your blood pressure is going up, and so almost in same constant, you have cortisol being released by your adrenal glands, and that cortisol is producing more sugar. It's also constricting those blood vessels even more. And one thing that nobody really talks about is that you also get an inflammation response from the body. And it's not a great one, but it's really there just to, just in case your body has some kind of injury, you know, because if you're fighting a bear and your sympathetic nervous system's going crazy, it's going to really act in that place, you know. So if there's any kind of damage, inflammatory factors are going to be launching out to that source, wherever the damage is.
Okay. So basically, you know, kind of what you're saying is, hey, you're waking up already in this sympathetic state of fight or flight. And most people are like, well, who cares about that? But it's like, well, you're living life in that state. So it's very hard for you to ever recover. And I don't think people really fully understand that. And so it's a constant stress on our systems, you know, and
Right.
eventually shows up in maybe your adrenals, your cortisol, you know, anxiety, all these other markers. And that's where I don't think people really fully understand. It's like, well, I can sleep when I'm dead, or, you know, I don't need sleep. It's overrated. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, you know, hey, you can work out all you want. If you don't recover, then you're just kind of working against the results you want.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things too, because when you have a release of cortisol in the body, it basically shuts off growth hormone. And when you need that growth hormone, not only to recover your muscles in your body after a workout, but your endothelium lining in your blood vessels benefits from growth hormone. It regenerates. When you can't regenerate that type of important tissue, then over time, atherosclerosis begins to build up, or has a higher chance to build up. And that's why they have been able to link studies of lack of sleep to heart disease, congestive heart failure. And that's when the heart is failing, you know. So these individuals are more likely to have heart attack, stroke, and they typically see this too with not only just insomnia patients, but also sleep apnea patients. So, I mean, there's a lot of research now that is showing a direct link to lack of sleep, less than 7 hours of sleep, to these types of disease states, especially diabetes.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing, man, that, you know, you can get that just from lack of sleep. And not only that, there's so many other, you know, issues that we can have from that. And one of the first things that you mentioned was, you know, nutrition. Second thing you mentioned was exercise as ways to help with sleep, which I thought were really powerful, because a lot of times if we go to a doctor, you know, Ambien may be the first thing they recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what are your thoughts on, something like Ambien, that somebody may be listening to this and that's what they're taking right now as their kind of resort to sleep?
Yeah, that was me 2 years ago. So it was taking Ambien for about 3 or 4 years. Like I said, I served in the military. They had me on a 12 to 8 shift. So I typically it took me a while to get that back. And I felt like it was my crutch. If I didn't have it, I was irate. I mean, I would really worry. I would even get anxious about it.
Wow.
For someone that's on it right now, I just want to say there's a lot of hope. There's a tapering schedule that we can use. There's so many behavioral types therapies that we can try. There's so many proven techniques that have been proven to help not only titrate you off of this, but also to help slowly induce sleep, to teach you the habits. Because a lot of people forget, when you've lost the skill to sleep, then it's a skill that we have to learn again. And that's typically why I say, this is a huge thing. That's why so many psychologists are doing it. That's why people like us that are in the healthcare community are trying to get into it, because we just forget that that's one oftentimes missed question when you go to your doctor's appointment. Do you ever specifically have them ask you about sleep, even with your heart, blood pressure, or if you've had any type of cholesterol issues, sugar issues? I always feel like that's always another can of worms that most physicians just don't have time to discuss, because they're always, dependent on what they're able to do and in a lot amount of time, because the insurance is only going to pay them so much,
Right. So what are we've kind of discussed some of the reasons why people aren't getting sleep. One is eating too close to bedtime, maybe, having their cell phone too close to their bed or their blue screen. Are there any other major things that you see?
Yeah.
Parents or people not getting sleep?
A lot of times it's bad habits that they've learned when they were little, that when they were younger, they were more resistant to. They would just drink all night, go to bed, and they would sleep until whenever they needed to, and they'd wake up. And so a lot of times, I've had a lot of clients with nightcaps. I was like, well, what's a nightcap? And they'll tell me, just 3-4 fingers of whiskey. Yeah. It relaxes me. And so you kind of have to educate them on certain things. It's okay to have a nightcap. I won't tell you to stop that, but I'm going to lengthen that time from when you go to bed, because they need to understand that when you drink alcohol, for say, it's going to stimulate a certain receptor in the brain called the GABA receptor. And then after a while, it's going to cause that GABA receptor to go back into the nerve. And now you don't have any inhibitory sensors at that point. All you have is excitatory. So you're going to have a lot of excitement going on in the brain in the middle of the night, depending on how much you drank. And that's going to be the difference between you having a really poor night of sleep and low quality sleep. So, it's simple things like when to drink certain things, when to eat certain things. And then on top of that, it's all about paving the way for certain positive habits during the day that are going to keep that rhythm, and as well as the sleep pressure to where it needs to be by the time it's bedtime. Are you familiar with process S and process C of sleep?
No.
Okay. We could talk about that later, but it's typically what I use when I'm evaluating which process is potentially off and how are we going to get it back, into alignment.
Go ahead. You can talk about it if you want. Go ahead.
Okay. So when I'm working with clients and I'm looking through the questionnaire, as well as all of their diet and food logs, there's a process called process C. This is our circadian rhythm. So, basically it's what we know it as. Everything is on a rhythm to light and day.
Sure.
So during the day, you want to be exposed to as much light as possible. So you keep those hormones running, keeping you awake, keeping you alert. And then closer to bedtime, you want to start minimizing the light and therefore inducing more of those sleep chemicals so you can slowly start to feel drowsy. Now, this is exactly in sync with a process called S, and it's just basically sleep pressure.
Okay.
So after 16 hours of our body being awake, we build up a chemical called adenosine. And as that chemical builds up, it's causing this sleep pressure on us, causing us to feel drowsy. And this is typically what I worry about with sleep deprived individuals. So we get a lot of moms that are, they'll post on Instagram, this is my third night with 2 hours of sleep. And I go, why are you operating your vehicle? Because so much sleep pressure built up. I mean, you're just all it takes is 1-2 seconds of a micro sleep and you've just lost control of your vehicle. So I'm looking at sleep pressure, finally balancing that out. With a lot of older individuals, they take a lot of naps, and they usually take late naps because they're so exhausted. So They would sleep around 4 to 6 o'clock, and then they would be upset that they can't go to bed at 10. So we have to kind of help eliminate those naps or limit them in time frame so they don't lose as much sleep pressure.
Okay.
So by the time it gets to where they need to be asleep, their sleep pressure is enough to where it's perfectly sync with that circadian rhythm, and they can go ahead and take that dive and sleep. So wow, I'm always looking at those two systems and finding out which one is not in alignment and trying to fix that. And usually they're always going to be in kind of slight disarray, and that's why you always have those slight dips in energy level, like in the middle of your day, where you can tell yourself, like, this would be a perfect time to have a nap.
Sure. Or meditation, or yeah.
And I just say, hey, if you can't take a nap at work, go for a walk outside. Take about 20 minutes, because the best light that you can give yourself is the mid-afternoon sun, because it's about 100 lux. It's good enough to kind of reset you. And yeah, anytime you're out in the nature, I mean, yeah, close your eyes, do some meditation. I think that's perfect.
Awesome, man. That's amazing. So what are the different types of sleep, and what do each one of them mean?
Yes. So our bodies go through a cycle, goes through pretty much 5 sleep cycles. You got stage 1 and stage 2, which are considered light stage sleep. These are probably the ones where when you're in this stage sleep, if something changes in your environment, whether the temperature changes, whether you hear a noise, or whether somebody touches you in that stage, you're most likely to wake up and feel like you've never been asleep at all, right?
Right.
Now, then you go into the deeper stages 3 and 4. This is typically when your body is doing a lot of recovery work, and you typically will spend longer durations of stage 3 and 4 in the first 4 hours of your sleep. So that's why getting to sleep fast and efficiently is more important, so you can get right into that deep stage sleep, because your first cycle, you're going to spend a good while in that first cycle in deep stage.
So and first cycle, you end up doing more of your deep sleep, and then the second cycle, you do more of your REM?
Well, you'll be doing less and less of deep and more of REM. So by the time it flips over to the latter half of the 4 hours, you won't be getting as much deep stage sleep as you did in the beginning of your slumber. Okay. Whereas REM sleep, you'll be getting more and more of your REM sleep. So as you're familiar with deep stage, I mean, that's our recovery sleep. So your growth hormones being released, you're also getting a lot of, in 2013, they published a study that showed that there was a lot of toxins and proteins that were being eliminated out of our brain. And these toxins and proteins were related to neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's. And so when you say something like that, they saw that when you look at an EEG, one of those brain activity scans of deep sleep, you'll see a bunch of big peaks and troughs. And what's happening is the brain is getting really excited, and then it's calming down. It's getting really excited. And what it's doing is, when it calms down, the lymphatic system, close to the brain, is sucking up a lot of these toxins as the brain is calming down. So it's a perfect system. And that's why they treat that as something that's extremely beneficial. And then, as you know of REM, I mean, that's where all the creation is, So in the deep stage, you're taking a lot of these short-term memories that you want to learn. So if you're a student or a doctor or someone that's really learning on a daily basis, you're taking those short-term memories you just learned and you're putting them into a long-term bank. And that's in deep stage. In REM stage, you're now taking these long-term memories and now associating with the memories that you already have. And that's why they say this is important for critical thinking, imagination, creativity. So that term sleep on it, I mean, that's typically what this, is going towards, just go ahead.
So a question on, some of the questions people often ask me is how much REM and deep sleep do I need for it to be efficient compared to my overall sleep?
You can't really answer that with a Fitbit, because a lot of people, I'll look on their Fitbit trackers and they really start to get real anxious about, well, I'm not getting this much REM sleep, or said I didn't get any REM sleep and no deep sleep. And I'm like, they're not that accurate. So I tried never to go there. What they can do, the best is if you're going to bed fairly easily and you're able to stay asleep for the most of the time. I mean, I would say at least 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're able to achieve that, then you could assume that your body's doing what it needs to do. Now, you can go way in depth to get a sleep study and really get the fine results of that.
Right.
But have you ever been to a sleep study?
No.
Never. Okay. I mean, it's highly uncomfortable. They're working on different equipment that you can take home with you, so you're more in an environment that's a little friendly to sleep. But I mean, you have things attached to every part of your body. A lot of good information that came out of that. They can tell you if you have certain types of nerve twitching, like restless leg syndrome. And I have a lot of issues there where, some people are just waking up because they're twitching, basically off the bed, So sleep studies can be helpful there. But as it relates to your sleep, I mean, you typically want about 5 to 7 sleep cycles if you can get them. And that basically just comes down to, 7.5 to 8 hours, or, even 7 to 8 hours. Obviously, we can get more if you can. And if you do, I mean, more power to you. I mean, that's awesome. But we all have jobs. We all have second jobs, so it's at the very minimum, I try to just get every single client at least 7 to 7.5 hours. If they want more, we can reach for more. But it's all about when you wake up, how do you feel?
Sure.
Do you feel rested? Do you feel like you need that coffee right away? Or can you wait 2 or 3 hours before you get it? And if we can, improve those types of morning symptoms, then we have a win for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So I've heard kind of some mixed things that you need about 40% of total sleep and deep in REM.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any valid. To me, it's like if I wake up and I feel tired, chances are, if I had 7 to 8 hours of sleep, my sleep performance wasn't as great as, a lot of times we'll wake up, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like ready to go. I feel on fire.
Yeah.
And I think those are ways that we have to just learn how to listen to our body.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I think we rely too much on technology that we kind of stop asking ourselves, hey, what do I actually need for sleep tonight? Right. And a lot of times our body kind of tells us by yawning, at 9:30, or we start kind of getting tired. And, for a lot of people nowadays, they just pick up their phone when they start getting tired, and it's like a jolt of caffeine. And it's like, oh, I'm good. I can scroll for another 30 minutes before bed. So,
it's like the easiest, it's just our guilty pleasure, right? And I almost say, like you mentioned, a lot of blue light, and that's also one thing I like to talk to my clients about too, because you get the blue light, and that's been shown to have the most inhibition of excreting melatonin or creating melatonin in the brain, right?
Right.
Melatonin is effective. I mean, have you ever tried taking melatonin? Half the people that take it.
I don't do good with melatonin. I feel tired and groggy all the time.
So, but I try to tell them, start looking at not just blue light, but also the brightness of light that you have in your house, because one light bulb is about 180 lux of light. And it typically takes about that much to alter your biological clock.
Okay.
So I would highly recommend, and I recommend this to all my clients, is buying dimmers. obviously you can get the dimmers on the lights and just kind of move them up and down. That would be the fancy way. I just go to Home Depot and I buy the lamp dimmers and I put them next to either my bed. So when I come in for my nighttime, I'll keep it extremely low. I have a lamp in my bathroom where it's extremely low. And if I can't sleep, within 15, 20 minutes, I'll go out to the room where there's another light dimmer where I can either read an article, read a book, something that's, very mundane and boring. And that will definitely make me more drowsy.
Okay. Do you wear the blue blocking glasses or any of that stuff?
No.
Yeah. So
No,
I have kind of multiple pairs of those. I have the red ones, the yellow ones that I typically will wear at night.
Yeah.
I'm working on my computer or watching TV. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it, just try to keep the brightness low. Keep the glasses on. They don't hurt. And then I think mostly everybody, if you have an iPhone, they have a night shift mode now.
Yeah.
Where you can do that. And so as long as the brightness is low and you have that orange tinge to it, you're blocking something. But the fact that you're still on social media, it's that dopamine release that really bugged me. When you get a red flag or a sticker or something that says, "Oh, someone's liked your photo," you're going to want to investigate that person or look at them. And that's why I just say 30 minutes before bed, or even more if you can. Use that time for quality. Use it for you. Use it for your spouse. I mean, be involved. Be, present, basically. And that's typically what, usually in the second, third week, we start throwing in more meditation, because it's all about being present. When it's all said and done.
Of course. So, do you have a recommendation on how people can improve sleep? So, you talked about food. You talked about exercise. We've talked a little bit about blue screen. Is there a supplement you recommend for people? Is there, is there anything specific that you might say, hey, I heard this, or this is what works really well for clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we're going to stay away from stimulants, coffee, any type of dietary supplements that can cause stimulation. And then when it comes down to supplements, I typically get all my clients on magnesium. Okay. I'm a firm believer that the majority of America are lacking magnesium. So the form that I typically try to go with is magnesium glycinate. It's a chelated form that allows for fast absorption. I typically try to do about 300 milligrams at night. Is that you as well?
I have it, man. So that's why I was just like, yes, I'm on the right track.
Okay. So with that, I mean, magnesium is a cofactor for thousands of biological, processes in our body. So let's replenish that. It also has a calming effect. The only thing I would say watch out for is if you find yourself waking up with a bowel movement, because magnesium can do that. It can move your bowels a little bit quicker. You might find yourself having to take it about 6 to 8 hours before bedtime, so you can get that out of the way. But with that, calcium is also important, not just for your bones, but it's a cofactor in producing melatonin, in that process of tryptophan to serotonin to melatonin. So I typically will recommend at least 600 milligrams of calcium. And once again, calcium glycinate, something that absorbs it. But if you're only at Walmart and you can only find calcium citrate at a 600 milligrams, that's fine too, But then a good quality multivitamin, I don't have a preference of which one. I think a lot of the supplement companies are pretty slimy when it comes to what they say they have, unless it's been tested. So if you have a dietitian or a nutritionist that have a good multivitamin that you can take, I mean, that would obviously take care of it for me. Okay,
cool. So calcium from a supplement, not from milk.
I usually do a lot of milk myself. And this would, like I said, it would just be something where we would try it out and see if it helps. Okay. And if they don't notice a difference, I'm going to kick it out. Especially if they say, they eat a lot of broccoli, they eat a lot of vegetables with calcium, they drink milk. If they're getting it that way, obviously your body's going to absorb that much better. But, I'm also going to be asking them, when was the last time you had a vitamin D level checked? because sometimes with colder winter months, you don't absorb as much vitamin D, and that's deeply responsible for absorbing calcium. So sometimes we need to fix the vitamin D deficiency as well.
Okay. Yeah. And if you're in an office all day, it doesn't matter
Right.
if you live in a warm climate or not. If you're not getting out into the first part of the sun of the day and getting it on your body, in your eyes or your head, then chances are you're probably going to have a lower vitamin D, or you're in a colder climate.
Precisely. I mean, so a lot of times where, and just in healthcare in general, we deal with a lot of older patients that don't go outside very often. And so we typically have to increase their vitamin D to anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 units per day.
Wow.
Just to make sure they're able to still absorb calcium. Because without vitamin D, your body just takes calcium and spits it out.
Okay.
But a good multivitamin should have a good supplement of that, and therefore giving you things like vitamin K2, as well as other cofactors that help you absorb the calcium.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, hey, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to cover on this, with anything to do with sleeping?
Yeah, as we kind of reiterate it time and time again, it's all about taking care of your body. We in the sleep community, we say WOGO. It's kind of like our YOLO. We only get only one body. And so if you felt like you've been mistreating it for, you're maybe 35, 45, you finally got on a blood pressure medicine, or they've started talking about diet and exercise, look at sleep. If you don't think it's insomnia, get a sleep study, because a lot of older individuals, and it doesn't discriminate on age, weight, neck circumference. Sleep apnea can affect anyone, in which you can easily get help with a CPAP machine. So go see your doctor for that. But if you've been struggling with your sleep for years, the research is already out there. I'm not making anything up. I'm just bringing it to the forefront. Seek help, even if it's a blog article. Make those small changes. I typically recommend stick with the schedule first. Try to get your body asleep at this time, or lay down at this time, wake up at this time. Stick with that even in the weekends. Don't push it. Don't try to stay out at 2:00 in the morning when you shouldn't, because that's really going to mess you up if you have sleep issues. And if you think it's anxiety related, seek help. And that's kind of what we're here for. Just kind of getting your mind off of that and trying to help you bring back that mental clarity to keeping yourself in the moment, so you can just focus on that one thing, and that's sleep.
So listen, if you're listening to this podcast, and as a lot of people, or probably 90% of the population, you don't get that six hours of sleep, let alone 7 to 8 hours, and you're looking to increase your performance in your sleep, how do people come in contact with you, Zeke?
Thank you for so we have a company website called livelovesleep.com, and this is for everybody now. So if you're struggling as an adult, you can book a free 15-minute evaluation where we go over your issues and see if this is right for you. Okay. A lot of times I'll catch one simple thing where I say, hey, let's try this. Give me a call and see how it works. And if we need to go more in detail, we're going to set up a plan for you. If you might be a parent, or you just had a newborn and your baby is keeping you up at night, we just hired 3 more consultants to help us out with that. And that's been a huge improvement, where we can get your baby to sleep and allow you to get back to sleep. So whether or not it's your baby or if it's you, you can always go on livelovesleep.com, check us out, and book a sales call. Even if it's your child that you want to get fixed, or if it's yourself, you just go underneath our consultants tab. You'll see me, Zeke Medina, or you can check out my sleep packages, adult sleep packages, or 17 and up, and just take a look at it and see if that's something that fits you.
And if you guys are listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, and I'll have the link in there for Zeke. It's called Live, Love, laugh, say that
Live, love, sleep.
Live, love, sleep. Yeah.
.com.
It's a good one, man. So, well, hey, I want to thank you for being on here and just giving us all this information and resources and just how much I appreciate it, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me and letting me spread the word, man. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you. If you guys are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook, where I will be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. If you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, feel free to reach out to me, jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com, or check out our website, habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.